Float like a Butterfree, sting like a Beedrill. The research continues as we discover the similarities between our world and all existing Pokémon. Today we're exploring the Weedle family, the second bug type from Kanto. Let's find out if bees really faint after stinging, if wasps make honey, and if this family is actually just a story of becoming a knight in shining armor. Lots to unpack, so let's fly into the sticky but sweet world of the Weedle family. I've always imagined Weedle as a mix of weed, like an unwanted plant, since it always seems to be hanging out in the grass, and needle, because of its pointed head. But in Japanese, Weedle is known as Biidoru, which either translates to a combination of bee and needle, or just beetle. Kakuna in both English and Japanese essentially translates to cocoon, referencing the pupal stages of insects. Once again adding to the cutesy sounding ending, I appreciate the effort to un-ick the bug stereotype. And most interestingly, Beedrill in English could not be more on the nose of a combination of a bee and drills, as you can clearly see by, well, just looking at it. However, in Japanese, its name is Supiaa, meaning spear. This is our first clue that there is more to the Beedrill than first meets the eye. So before we get into the animals the Weedle family is based on, we have to give some attention to the weapons attached to them. On top of Weedle's head is a single spike reminiscent of a pickelhaube, which is a spiked helmet used long ago by German soldiers. Weedle also has a blade on the end of its tail. It even looks like the fuchsia that was once used by farmers as an all-occasion tool in case they were in the fields when a battle suddenly broke out. Who knew Weedle was such a compact war machine? Kakuna also draws inspiration from historical armor, with its unique geometric shape and rounded head that resembles a steel helmet like the classic frog-mouthed helm. These were popular jousting helmets since they protect the eyes better than just a hat. And it makes sense that the second stage of the family would have fancier armor. Also, did you know that Kakuna's sprite has changed over time? Back in Pokémon Red and Blue, Kakuna had scythes for arms. Evolving into Beedrill, the scythes became spears for hands, and then went even further with jousting lances once it mega evolved. It looks like a medieval jousting knight. Beedrill has kind of always been the bad boy counterpart to Butterfree, but I bet you didn't expect it to also be Prince Charming. While charming might be a characteristic of a bumblebee, is Beedrill really a bee like the Pokédex says, or does it more closely resemble a wasp? Let's take a look at some similarities between bees and wasps to solve this mystery. Bees and wasps share several similarities, like having two pairs of wings, segmented bodies, being pollinators, and having the ability to use those notorious stingers. However, there are distinct differences between them. Bees are generally more docile and only sting when provoked. They are rounder and are covered in tiny hairs that help them collect pollen, which some use to produce honey. Wasps, on the other hand, have longer, smoother bodies with fewer hairs, as they primarily hunt other insects rather than collect pollen. Something you may have heard before is that bees can only sting once and then they pass away. This isn't exactly a myth, but it's not 100% true either. Did you know that this only happens to honeybees? All other kinds of bees, along with hornets and wasps, do not suffer the same fate. Using their stingers is fatal for only honeybees because of their unique anatomy. Their stingers are barbed, and when used they get stuck in the victim. When flying away after the stinger gets ripped out along with part of the bee's abdomen. Honeybee stings are difficult to remove and continually release venom. They really risk it all for a very hard-hitting attack. Do it for the hive! Wasps and all other bees have smooth, straight stingers, so they are able to remove them after stinging and attack as many times as they please. My guess is that other forest Pokémon don't particularly enjoy this trait. Another misconception is that all bees make honey. But did you know that of the 20,000 species of bees found around the world, less than 4% produce honey? Wasps are often misunderstood and overshadowed by their bee counterparts. And despite not producing honey, they still play a crucial role in pollination. Wasps contribute to ecosystems by pollinating a variety of plants, including some that bees do not visit. Just like butterflies, their foraging behavior allows them to transfer pollen as they move from flower to flower, aiding in the reproduction of many plants. All pollinators are super important for the environment, not just the honey producers. Classic Combi taking all the credit. It's time to enter the hive and see what species the Weedle family resemble in real life. But first, twin needle that subscribe button. Okay, before we get into what Weedle is in real life, remember the lesson we learned in the last episode. Don't be a misty about bugs. Okay, here we go. It's Beedrill larva time. It may have slipped our minds when looking at a Weedle because of how cute the design is, but upon closer inspection, we can see that Weedle is inspired by the larvae of bees and wasps. These larvae are the stage between an egg and pupa in the metamorphic life cycle, and no bee colony can be healthy without copious amounts of these little guys. Unlike other baby insects like caterpillars, bee larvae are pampered by the adult worker bees. Did you know a colony of bees can grow up to 80,000? I feel like that's about how many Weedle cards I had when I was growing up. Since the larvae are blind and don't have a way to walk around to go get food for themselves, worker bees are constantly foraging to provide plenty of nourishment so the larva can develop. I guess Weedle was a spoiled prince after all. Unlike some other insects, bees and wasps do not remain in the larval stage for very long. The average larval time for bees is only 6 days. This is probably why Weedle evolves at the low level of 7. Fun Pokemon fact, shiny Weedle is more of a cream color, which directly references the true color of bee larva. Now the larvae are grown and we're moving on. Ash would be proud of you. Bee cocoons are an essential stage in the life cycle of many bee and wasp species, particularly solitary bees like mason bees and leafcutter bees. After the larval stage, the bee larvae spin a protective cocoon around themselves, usually within a hollow stem, wood crevice, or specially constructed nest. You may remember from the last episode that a cocoon is a separate hardened shell casing that is unlike the caterpillar's chrysalis, which is part of its actual body. Inside the cocoon, the larvae undergo metamorphosis, transforming into pupa and eventually emerging as adult bees. These cocoons provide protection from environmental threats, such as predators and harsh weather conditions, allowing the bees to develop in peace. Check them out, they look exactly like a Kakuna. The durability of these cocoons also helps preserve the species through winter, as many bees opt to remain dormant within their cocoons until springtime. Sometimes I wish I was in a cocoon all winter. Up until this point, I've been a bit vague on if the Beedrill lineage is based on bees or wasps. That's because, contrary to the name, Beedrill resembles a wasp far more than a bee, and Kakuna is more similar to a bee cocoon since most wasps don't even make them. This evolution may be a bit of a mess, similarly to the switcheroo of the war turtle to Blastoise evolution. Weedle wasn't always going to be the first stage of Beedrill at all. An early sprite of Weedle was once revealed on Game Freak's official website, showing that it would actually evolve into some sort of thick grub-looking Pokémon, and finally into some sort of beetle. Remember, its name in Japanese means beetle. I think it's adding up. But this isn't the first time some last-minute change happened to a Pokémon family that made my head spin, and I doubt it'll be the last. That said, I'm the professor and am going to give it my best scientific attempt. There are 3 wasps that Beedrill resembles the most. The first is the paper wasp. Notice the slender body, narrow waist, and long legs. They are known for building umbrella-shaped nests made from a material they create by chewing wood fibers mixed with saliva, hence the paper in their name. They are generally non-aggressive and play a beneficial role in gardens by preying on pests. Non-aggressive doesn't sound like a Beedrill trait to me. Let's try another. In contrast, yellow jackets are more robust and aggressive, with bright yellow and black stripes. They often build their nests in hidden places like underground burrows or wall cavities and can become highly defensive if their nests are disturbed. Yellow jackets are also notorious for scavenging sugary foods, which is why you've likely seen them at your picnic. How fun! I think the colors match quite perfectly. But have you seen how big a Beedrill is? Let's try one more. Saving the most formidable for last, the Goliath from East Asia, known for its massive size and aggressive behavior, is none other than the Asian giant hornet. At 2 inches in length with a wingspan that can reach 3 inches, it's the largest hornet species in the world. This fearsome predator has a powerful sting that delivers a potent venom, capable of causing intense pain. It primarily targets other insects, including bees, which it casually decapitates and feeds to its larvae. But interestingly enough, the Japanese honeybees have developed a defensive routine to combat these attacks. The bees form what's known as a bee ball, where they swarm the wasp and generate immense heat by shaking their little bodies. This ends in a successful win against the Asian giant hornet. Nature is sometimes indistinguishable from Pokémon battles. And now the time has finally come to find out, who's that Pokémon? It's the larva of wasps, pupal stage of bees, and the Asian giant hornet. It's Weedle, Kakuna, and Beedrill in real life. Beedrill may not be invited to your picnic, but you do have to respect it for providing the beautiful scenery you're having it in. Pollinators are nature's delivery system that help plants bloom and give us the flowers, fruits, and vegetables we love. So if you see a Beedrill in the wild, tell it thank you, but remember, it enjoys its personal space. If you like learning about these special insects, make sure you didn't miss the last episode about the incredible lives of Butterfree on Earth.